We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
PJ of the Absorptive Cats. I remember this dude.
Yep.
Again, we'll have some images here, so if you're on the
Just
YouTube
one.
channel, check those out. Doesn't matter. That's an image. All right. PJ could not get the bitstream audio output from his older PS3 Fat, so he switched to the Sony BDP 5100 for Blu-ray playback. Then with bitstream working and therefore Atmos working, took a pair of old speakers he wasn't using and mounted them as top fronts, making a 5.1.2 system. He really likes the expanded sound with the top fronts, but wants to keep experimenting.
Okay.
He has about 9 feet from the seats to the back wall. Do we think it's worth trying to move the speakers to surround back positions, making a 7.1 system? How would the impact on the overall sound compare to having front heights? I have to be dead honest with you, dude. I don't have 9 feet. I probably have 6 feet from my chair, maybe a little bit more, maybe 7, from my head to the back wall with my surround backs, and I couldn't tell you 99% of the time those things were doing anything back there. Even with Blu-rays,
Okay.
even with Blu-rays, even with a friend of mine, the guy who lost my copy of Guardians of the Galaxy and went to the store to buy me a new one, but then couldn't find it, so he got me Captain America: Civil War, which I love.
Yeah.
And I've watched it like 3 times. Even with 7.1 mixes and everything like that, still can't really tell it's doing anything back there.
Yeah, because my initial thought is there are more actual 7.1 mixes than there are Atmos mixes in
I hear what you're
existence.
saying. But I think that you're just a little bit more sensitive to the front. And if he's got 9 feet, first of all, have you ever thought to yourself that there's a hole in the sound behind my head and it's not going all the way around my head?
Right.
Have you ever thought that? If you have not, then I don't know that you need to worry that much about 7.1.
Yeah, it's tricky because, he's saying, in his case, this isn't a completely trivial thing because that's a fair amount of speaker wire that you're running to go all the way back.
No doubt.
So it's not like there's zero cost, although speaker wire doesn't have to cost a ton. But yeah, I completely get the question of, what do we think would be better use since his receiver tops out at using 7 speakers maximum? What's the best use, going for 5.1.2 or 7.1? Ah, golly. I'm really torn on this one. I'm personally really torn. Because I like surround backs here and there, but I also agree that having the overhead speakers, especially with that Dolby Surround Up mixer, it can make some nice effects since you're already enjoying the expanded sound. Yeah, I agree with Tom. If you feel like something is missing behind you, if you actually feel that way, then maybe that's worth it. But if you're going, you know what, sounds like stuff's coming from behind me, because maybe his surround speakers are a little bit behind his seats and it would kind of, psychoacoustically fill that in anyway. So if you don't feel like there's a hole, then I would say stick with the 5.1.2. That's my answer.
Yeah. Second, he says, what about 5.1.2 with top middles? What do we think would be the best setup when limited to 7 speakers max? That's a harder one, I think.
That is very tough.
If it were me and I had one setup to do and only one chance to do it and no experimentation, I believe that I would go with 5.1.2 with top middles.
Okay.
I say that because it has the best chance of having an effect that is unique compared. Like, I feel like the height speakers, which I'm going to experience very soon, the height speakers are taking something that you have and making it bigger and wider and whatever. The overhead speakers are taking something that you do not have and adding it. Now, the surround backs, technically, I think the objectively correct answer is to do surround backs, because surround backs have their own channels,
Right.
their own information. It is programmed in. It is hardwired into the sound. I think that is objectively the right answer. I think that subjectively, you might feel that the most benefit comes from not necessarily what is the best objective answer. I would probably go for top middle, simply because they are as far away from all the other speakers as they can
Hmm.
possibly get. Therefore, they must be adding something that is different. That being said, I think out of all the speakers that we're talking about, the surround backs would get the most information. The top fronts would get the second most information, and the top middles would get the
Well, the
least.
top middles get quite a bit. So Dolby's recommendation would be to go to 5.1.2 with top middles. That would be their suggestion.
Okay.
Um, Now,
I don't
I
know how I feel about agreeing with Dolby, but
yeah,
go on.
I'm going to come at it from the point of view of, do you want a more subtle expansion of the sound type of experience, or do you want a more I discreetly notice something type of experience? Because to me, the top middles are the most obviously noticeable. You will, when something
Right.
plays out of top middles, you will go, "Oh wow, there's sound coming from right above me." Now, if that is the type of thing, and you're the type of person who will go, "That is cool. There is nothing cooler than me noticing that," then you've got your answer. But on the other hand, if you go, you know what, I would rather have something that's a little bit more subtle, then I think, I mean, right now, I think I would call what he's got front heights as opposed to top fronts, because they're more or less on the front wall up by the ceiling and, way out in front of him. So I would call those front heights. Um, there is the option of kind of splitting the difference, which is having them on your ceiling, but having them maybe 5 feet in front of your seat on the ceiling. And then they would genuinely be top fronts. And you're
Right.
kind of splitting the difference so they're not directly above you and super duper discreet noticeable that way, but they're not all the way at the front of the room like front heights are. So they're more noticeable than that. So yeah, clear as mud answer, isn't it? But hopefully you sort of get the idea of what I'm getting at. Is I think where you have them right now is probably the most subtle, whereas right above you will be the most noticeable, and then you could split the difference, have them on the ceiling 5 feet in front of you for kind of a halfway between effect. So yeah, I'll leave it to you to decide what kind of person you are and what you might like best.
There you go. Aiden. Aiden has a gym set up in his garage and a pair of Bauer and Wilkins 685 S1s connected to a Dayton amp. He's noticed that the room has a lot of echo when he's listening to
Mm.
music. He tried to clap test and gets a lot of ringing. Will he need to add acoustic panels to the garage to fix this, or are there any other less extreme options he could try? Well, yeah, there's actually a really easy option. You could just open the garage door
Ah, yes,
and let all the sound go out.
that is true.
That is the easiest solution. Face the speakers towards you and put yourself between the speakers and the garage, the open garage door. Your ringing problems will go away pretty quickly. Now, that being said, you may not engender yourself to your neighbors or
Yes,
to the
yeah,
police very much,
yeah.
but you have now turned your space into your entire neighborhood into your room. Therefore, yes. Less extreme than putting up acoustic panels. I mean, what do you consider to be less extreme? Egg carton shell,
Yeah.
egg cartons, which, by the way, don't
Yeah,
work.
don't do that.
No matter how many times they show up in movies and stuff as being a thing that people do in recording studios. I mean, hanging blankets from the walls, comforters, stapling pillows up on the walls. All these things are things people do, and I
Just
would consider them to be way more extreme than putting up some acoustic panel.
taking raw bats of insulation and just lying them around in a mess. That'll work.
I mean, if you have like open things in your garage, like a lot of garages do, they're not finished completely, like the walls and the ceiling and stuff like that, or
Right.
just open stuff. Just shove some insulation in there, hot.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Yes, your garage, which probably stayed cool in the winter and got really hot in the summer, will now be a probably you'll start off in there and they'll be cool and you'll end up in there sweating like a pig because you're working out and it keeps all the heat in there. But yeah, I mean yes, you need insulation though. You need absorptive panels.
Yeah, so honestly, the way I would come at this for something that doesn't look like having absorption panels on your walls of your garage, because I think that's kind of the look he's trying to avoid. I would come at this the way they come at it in an industrial situation, in an office building, in a restaurant, or an industrial, workplace, which is mostly the ceiling. Treat the ceiling. Like Tom said, if you've already got open rafters, then you just put raw insulation in there. It won't even look out of place. That'll help big time. But if you happen to have a drop ceiling, because sometimes garages do, get acoustic ceiling tiles. acoustic ceiling tiles that act as absorption and also block noise from traveling upwards and out of the garage through the top if there happens to be a room above it. So Acoustimac is a great place to go for both. They have acoustic ceiling tiles and they have what they just call their acoustic baffles, which, like, have you ever gone to a gymnasium and seen, what looks like sort of like pads hanging from the ceiling vertically? Those are acoustic baffles, and again, you're treating the ceiling to reduce all the echoing that's going on up there. That's a good way to put something that's kind of out of sight but still effective, is to do everything on the ceiling instead of on the walls. So that's sort of the way I would come at it. If you want to get something that maybe doesn't look too obtrusive, GIK has their spot panels, which are smaller panels. You can arrange in patterns and things like that. So they're less effective, but they're easy to hang up. You can get them in a wide range of colors. So if you want something that looks a little bit more attractive, I might point you to the GIK acoustic spot panels. That's what I would do.
Yeah. Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com.
This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.